Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich. This is Crime Talk. This is our Tuesday night live edition going out to both YouTube and Facebook. I want to thank everybody for joining us here this evening. For those who have maybe not joined us in the past, my name is Scott Reich. I am a practicing criminal defense attorney. Been doing that for 27 years. So I'd like to say that I have a little bit of perspective as to what is really going on in criminal cases when things are going on in a criminal case, what both sides would be thinking, so to speak. A perspective that you don't find on a lot of channels. And like I said, in 27 years, I've done every kind of case you could possibly imagine, from death penalty matters all the way down to simple prostitution type cases. We have done it all. We have a small little practice here located in the Mile High City, 5 attorneys, including me, but that's pretty big for a criminal defense practice, and have one attorney that does some personal injury work, but the bulk of it is criminal defense. That's what we do. That's what we know. All right. And hopefully throughout this process, we can have some interesting conversation. Who knows? Maybe you'll even learn something about the law that maybe you didn't know before. Because, you know, the beautiful thing and what I love about being a lawyer is I learn something new every day, and it's never the same day twice. Never. That's what I love about being a lawyer. That's what I hate about being a lawyer. Some days it'd be nice to just get up and say, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And then you have your whole day planned out. Says, I'm going to do this for this time period. It's going to be great. But then you get interrupted with an emergency, and something needs to be filed, or something is filed in a case. And all of a sudden it requires an immediate response. And so your whole day is shot, and not so much anymore like it was back in the days when it was getting started, where I would spend most of my time evenings and weekends, because now I can, you know, have associates do a lot of that stuff. So I can have a life, so to speak. Although sometimes that doesn't quite always work out. And then you don't know. Like today, I was supposed to be traveling to the western side of the state, but because of some travel issues for somebody involved in the case, suddenly the matter got continued all of a sudden. I had a free day in the office, which was spectacular. We love those days, particularly since I have a big hearing coming up in the next couple of days. So not to, you know, bore you with my scheduling thing, but I just want to, you know, this is what I do. Maybe one of these days we'll have so many subscribers that Scott won't have to practice law. He could just simply come here and discuss legal matters that come out. And obviously there's going to be a lot of legal stuff. There's always crime in the news. And I remember when I met the lovely Miss Kristen many, many years ago. And at the time, I didn't live in the city and county of Denver, but that's where I did most of my work. And I said, why would you want to live there? There's so much crime. But then I thought, okay, you know, when I moved into the city and county of Denver, you know, it'll be okay. And now, and I live in a pretty nice neighborhood. I mean, it's pretty decent, but we've got robberies, we've got shootings going on in real nice neighborhoods. And you got to wonder, what the hell is the mayor going to do about it? As we've seen, you know, I think San Francisco, where a very progressive district attorney was elected on some sort of reform platform, that if we all just gave everybody a big hug and we didn't incarcerate anybody, that everything is going to be fine. Okay. And you may meet a lot of people like that. Okay. But I'm telling you, as a practicing criminal defense attorney, I've talked to a lot of people that have been convicted of crimes, and one could say that they are in fact criminals. Okay. And when I've talked to these individuals, when, you know, let's say they're burglars, and you ask them, well, what do you look for when a house before they're going to go burgle it? And, you know, the funny thing they always say is, well, if it looks like it has a security system, I won't go in. I say, well, anything else? Yeah, if it looks like maybe the homeowner would have a gun, I'm not going to go in because they don't want to get shot, right? Most states have a make my day or castle doctrine type of philosophy where, if somebody comes into your house uninvited and you are in fear, you can shoot and basically ask questions later. Okay. They got to be in the house. You can't do it on the porch and then drag the body inside. Can't do that. Not giving legal advice here. Okay. Just saying. So that's what they look for. Okay. Your catalytic converter these days. Have you noticed a lot of catalytic converters being stolen from places? You know how many seconds it takes for somebody to cut off a catalytic converter of a particular make and model? About maybe 120 seconds, 2 minutes, right? Doesn't take that long. Had clients that have done that. Well, what do you look for? Well, I look for this kind of car, this particular area. Basically, like anything in life, just like when we talk about those cowardly people that go in and do terrible things at schools. Okay, we're not going to say what they are, but their names should be spread out there so that everybody knows what the cowards they are. What do they look for? Okay, the criminal looks for the soft target. They look for the path of least resistance. So, and that's talking from 27 years, ladies and gentlemen. But everybody thinks that if we just have everybody a big hug, and don't get me wrong, as a criminal defense attorney, we have to protect everybody's constitutional rights. But it just seems like these days we are defying actual common sense. Okay. If you have children, you don't reward your children with bad behavior. It's a simple concept, right? Your children do something wrong. You say, listen, if you follow the rules, good things will happen. If you don't follow the rules, negative consequences are going to happen, whether you're grounded, you don't get that extra cookie after dinner, something along those lines, negative consequences. Why is that any different in the adult grown-up world? And I guess I'm just a little frustrated when there is a lack of complete common sense, okay? When the people in charge, and I'm talking here as a citizen, all right? Now, don't get me wrong. It has made my job a lot easier as a criminal defense attorney. And there's been cases where bonds have been given, and I'm just like, you're thinking to yourself, don't do it, judge, don't do it. And they do it because, they got the ACLU sitting in the gallery and they don't want to be perceived as not basically giving a PR bond. You're starting to see, starting to see a little bit of shift in that because people are realizing this revolving door policy just doesn't work. But when you have people in charge that think that the whole world is nothing but unicorns, rainbows, and gumdrops, and we're going to try something new and we're going to try something different. It's never been tried before. And I've said this before. It's all been tried before. Okay. It's all been tried before. They just change the name every decade or two. It's all been tried before. Common sense results, you need common sense approaches yield good results. Common sense. When you start ignoring common sense, well, that's when things start going bad. All right. Let's talk about some real, not talking about common sense. Okay. Amber Heard. Okay. And I took a lot of heat, and I don't like Amber Heard. Frankly, never really heard of Amber Heard until the Johnny Depp trial. And for those of you, I'm sure most people have already watched when it comes to Amber Heard. She lost the defamation trial regarding the allegations that Johnny Depp brought against her, saying that he was defamed by her article that didn't mention her, the one that was published in the Washington Post, even though his name was never mentioned, basically saying that she was a victim of domestic abuse, but by reference, everybody knew who she was talking about. She didn't have any other prior situation, so to speak, other than when maybe she was involved with her then I think girlfriend at the time in Oregon, I think it was, or Washington State. But anyway, we digress. So she loses $15 million, $10 million for the compensatory damages, $5 million in punitives, which were reduced by the statutory cap of $345,000. And then she won on her claim of defamation, and she got $2 million. So basically, she owes Johnny Depp with a set-off of $8,345,000. I don't know about you, that's a lot of money. So what does Amber Heard do? She doubles down. She doubles down not in a conversation in passing, but with an interview with Savannah Guthrie from the Today program, where she basically, one could argue rather reasonably, committed yet another act of defaming Johnny Depp. Frank, do you have that video ready to play? Yes, sir. Let's take a look at it.
Of course, to my dying day, will stand by every word of my testimony.
That's basically saying that Johnny Depp did terrible things to her when they were married in a relationship. I would think that if I was Johnny Depp's attorneys, because Johnny Depp said, "Hey, we're not going to go after that million, the $8,345,000. I don't need it. It was about clearing my name, a good name. I'm a generous guy. I'm going to take the high road." You think Amber Heard would just kind of say, "Wow, Johnny, we've had our differences in the past, but you're really a gracious guy. Yes, we were toxic," as she said, in a relationship, which this guy said early on, it was a freaking toxic relationship on both sides. And just saying, "Hey, we need to part our good ways. And if you don't want to enforce that judgment, I really appreciate that," because she's now a single mom with a small child, and she could probably, she's not going to get too many acting gigs. She could probably use any money that she has remaining. No, Amber Heard doubles down, says, "I stand by every word." Now, certainly you have immunity for what you say in court. She could have come up with 10 other reasons and said Johnny Depp did this, and he couldn't sue her for defamation again. But I would think that a defamation suit could be brought against Amber Heard based upon these statements that were published to all these people, where she says, "I stand by my word of all the bad things Johnny Depp with me," even though, talk about reckless disregard for the truth, right? A jury has found that she was not, in fact, truthful, that she didn't testify to where they believed her, simply by a preponderance of the evidence, which is the legal standard in a civil case. More likely than not, right? If you had the scales of justice, preponderance of the evidence would be, just move it just a little bit. More likely than not, she couldn't convince a jury that what she said was the truth. Only on one allegation, where Johnny Depp's attorney went and did some things to try and, defame her. $2 million, but offset. It's like, no, it's a win for Johnny. Obviously, it's a lot different in a criminal case. The standard of proof is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. If you had to, move the scales of justice, you'd have to have so much evidence that you really move them pretty good. But in a civil case, just more likely than not. Simple standard. Preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. She couldn't do that. And then she goes on national TV, and this little snippet that's been put out there now, and she says, "I stand by it. I'm doubling down." Okay. Amber Heard must really like her attorneys, or maybe she has lots more money out there than we're not aware of, so that she can go pay these attorneys again. Because, if I was Johnny Depp's attorneys, I'd be like, "She's at it again. You want to go do it again?" I think this time was in New York. let's go for it. And go after the $8 million. I mean, that's the only way. It's about punishment, like we were talking about. Amber Heard never had any consequences. She still, to this day, hasn't had any real consequences, even though the judgment was only, 2 weeks ago. Then it doesn't, it's a piece of paper. I mean, the judgment is a piece of paper. It's not worth the paper it's written on, right? I've told clients over the years, oh, you can get a judgment, you betcha, because it's not worth the paper it's written on. It's not uncommon. Yeah, I got $1 million judgment. I got $1 million judgment. Okay. I have $1 million judgment against a former employee. It's not worth the paper it's written on. It's worth the $40 a month that I get from his books from the Department of Corrections for stealing money. It's that simple. You can sue anybody for anything. So there's no consequences, that we've seen for Amber Heard thus far. And, I'm really surprised. And the case possibly could get turned over on appellate grounds that basically it was in fact protected speech. And Amber Heard talks about how she feels as though, she has a free speech right to say what she has to say, but that she's being punished. And, because she stood up to the man, the authority out there, and it didn't quite work out so well. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think Amber Heard, somebody needs to take her down a peg or two. I mean, on the legal issue of it, I still think it was probably protected speech. The judge said no, let it go to the jury. Jury decided that it was defamation. She wins. There's liability. But I don't know who, I mean, like, why? You lost. Just go away. Just go away quietly, Amber Heard, so that, it just go away. But she's not going to do that. Somehow I have a feeling, yeah. Yes, Melissa, like I said earlier, she is a high rep learner, right? Isn't that what they tell the teachers tell the kids in school these days, that you're a high rep learner. We got to do it over and over and over again until you learn. That's just the way it is. I don't get it. I don't understand why she's not doing it. She's just listened to her attorney's advice. I'm sure her attorney said, keep your mouth shut. They're probably saying, you can go talk whatever you want. It's not going to help your case. And then on top of that, what does she do? She goes and doubles down basically on the jury that says, well, they got it wrong because they were basically duped by a better actor than I was. And his attorneys twisted everything around and the jury got duped. And I'm not upset with them at all, but they just got duped because they're all a bunch of idiots. Now I'm paraphrasing that. That's not exactly what she said, but she said they were conned. They were duped by the attorneys and Johnny Depp because he's a nice guy. And, I don't know. There you have Amber Heard. Okay. So those are kind of what I've got to talk about today. Crime. And I saw this because it really interests me. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal that rural America is having a huge increase in crime. It's not just the urban areas, not just the cities that we're talking about anymore. We're talking about rural areas where you have homicide rates in rural areas rising 25%. And it makes you really kind of wonder what the heck is going on. Even you got a 30% in kind of the urban areas, in the metropolitan areas. Was it all COVID related? Was the people just losing their minds? Was it, people just aren't following the law anymore? Maybe people from the city are moving to the burbs or the rural areas. I don't really know the answer to it. But I think it's interesting because it's not just, it's everywhere. Like I said, I think I live in a pretty nice neighborhood, and we've got people getting robbed in the park right across the street from my house. There's shootings that are taking place or aggravated robberies. There was a lady in our neighborhood that got robbed as she was going to work. Somebody went out and robbed her at gunpoint as she got in her car. And it really makes you wonder, at what point did the citizens say, okay, we gave this a shot. We did all this reform. We were all upset right after George Floyd. The police are bad people. The system is unfair, et cetera, et cetera. And okay, we've got 2 years of it, right? It's been a little over 2 years since the George Floyd stuff legislation was passed. They took away qualified immunity from police officers in some states. Saw another interesting article that New York Police Department has some of the retirement rate or people resigning from the NYPD is just through the roof. They're not going to be able to have enough police. And if you've been watching anything about crime in New York, you're wondering what is going on. I just, we have, okay, let me just jump into a question here. Trish Norman says, we have minimal crime. Everybody carries guns. Is that the answer? I don't know. I mean, it's been said an armed community is a polite community. Why? Because you don't know if that other person has a gun, right? And that's something, everyone has to make their own personal decision upon. I don't know if that's the answer. I really just don't know. But there are lots and lots of, there's so much crime. Like I said, is it COVID related? Is it, this great experiment that we started 2 years ago? And don't get me wrong, as a criminal defense attorney, nobody should go to prison if they're, innocent. And nobody should have to go to prison to, for any time that is greater, reasonable, or greater. No one should go to prison. Easy for me to say. No one should go to prison for any more time than is reasonably necessary to ensure the principles of sentencing, right? What are the principles of sentencing? The principles of sentencing are to go to punish the defendant, deter the conduct of the defendant, as well as others that know about his conduct, to rehabilitate, to have restitution. There's got to be some play there. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe you all know. Say so in the comments. If you put them there, we'll read them. And they go by kind of quick. So if you'd like, you don't have to, but if you super chat it, it certainly highlights it, but I will try to get there. Jamie Bailey from Washington says, Washington state crime is out of control. Cat, we have guns all over the house, hidden, furniture, easy to access, cameras everywhere. Yep. Uncivil Law, CrimeTalk, woohoo. Uncivil Law. Frank, can we send him a link? Julie, can you get his thing? See if he wants to join us here. Maybe because he was talking about what's her name real quick. Maybe Uncivil Law. We could send him a link and he could join us. And we can talk about Amber Heard a little bit as well. Let's see here. So, are private prisons better at rehabilitation? No, that's my opinion. Most of the private prisons are more concerned about making a buck, whereas the state ones, they've got a budget. But prisons are expensive. People do not realize how expensive it is to run a prison. When you get a pre-sentence investigation report, when somebody pleads guilty to a felony, whether in state or federal court, state that I practice in, federal court, they list, where they grew up, how they, their criminal history, did their mom and dad, provide a good home for them, or they were abused, things like that, to kind of explain how they got into the system. And at the end of the report, they give you a breakdown of basically what it costs. It's like, hey, if you put this person on probation, it's going to cost the state $6,000 a year in supervision costs. If they go to community corrections, it's going to be $30,000, which is like a halfway house. And if they go to prison, the cost of incarceration per year right now, the most recent number I saw is up to about $52,000 per year. So that's what it costs to put somebody in custody, okay, to keep them there. Give them 3 hots and a cot 365 days a year, okay? But then you got to, it's not just that cost. I mean, the food isn't that much. If you've ever seen prison or jail food, it's not that good. But that costs also include, the warden, the deputies, the overtime pay, security, training, electricity, heat, etc. It keeps going up and up and up. And so judges generally don't care about that. All right. They look at the crime itself, but it's something you have to consider. Like what, and I'm a concept. Okay. I learned this a long time ago from a very, very experienced district attorney. And when this district attorney retired, I had a little office space, but I had an extra office. And he goes, I'm probably going to be bored. I've worked all my life. Not sure what I could do. I'm like, hey, you should take a case or something. He goes, no. And I remember we were sitting around talking, and this attorney has since passed away. And, we're sitting in this office, and it wasn't a big office, but he has his own little office. Come over. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Got this case, and this DA is just, being real tough. I just don't get it. Why are they being so unreasonable? And he looks at me and he explains to me, and he goes, Scott, you need to go explain to him what I used to tell all my young deputy DAs, which is there's rape, murder, and violent crime. Everything else you should be able to deal. You should be able to resolve. And every now and then there's always going to be that guy with a small possession case that wants to go to trial because it wasn't his pants or something along those lines, right? The old "it ain't my pants" defense. And you get that. Like, okay, fine. It'll take a day and a half. Let's go do it. But that's what you have to go remind the district attorneys for is, hey, there's rape, murder, violent crime, and everything else. Everything else should be able to be resolved. It's not the end of the world. We should be able to resolve it short of trial. The other stuff, violent stuff, right? And if you look at the studies on recidivism, if someone's going to commit violent crimes, usually at a young age, they're going to continue to commit those violent crimes until they maybe get the help that they need, maybe work through those demons that they have. Why are they so angry, so to speak? And who knows? Maybe they're just not wired right. There's some people out there that are just not wired right. And, you're just going to have to, what's the word I'm looking for? You're just going to have to lock them up. Okay. You're going to have to lock them up till they're so old that they're too tired that they can't go hurt somebody else. Okay. I tell that to my district attorneys I deal with. I tell that to my associates that I have. Listen, we should be able to resolve this case, something reasonable. Why are we haggling? We're not going to go to trial over, 6 months. Like, what are we doing? They should come down. But sometimes that's not the way it works. And I get it. I got a hearing coming up in a couple of days. The offer was so out of the ballpark when you're talking longer than, like we'll see in court. We'll see in trial. Let's go do this thing. Tracy wants to know, why do rich people get away with breaking the law, but the rest of us have to serve time for a crime? That's Tracy's question. Well, good question. There's a couple of things that could possibly be. Maybe the case just wasn't as good against the rich guy than it was everything else. Maybe he hired better attorneys than, say, somebody who had no money and had to rely upon, the public defender that had, 600 cases and really didn't have time to get to, that client's particular case. Whereas, the rich guy that can pay his bills and he's getting charged $600 an hour, he's going to focus on that because he's making $600 an hour, right? It's that simple, right? You say the magic words, which is money's no object. I can assure you we're going to leave no stone unturned and probably get a much better result than if there was, hey, this is all the money I have. There is no more. And sometimes that's just the way it is. Now, then you have to wonder, well, maybe the law just isn't as fair for poor people than it is rich people, right? Remember, I think Animal Farm, all the animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. I mean, let's get for real. Like the video we talked about today, Paul Pelosi, right? Nancy Pelosi's husband. We're 2 weeks from this little incident that he had where the police said he, was driving under the influence, a little accident involved. If that was you and me, we would have been charged that night, given our summons, told to show up in court. Why the slow walk on everything? It makes you wonder, is the system fair? Generally, I think things work out the way they're supposed to. Okay. There's that old thing that says, what's the word I'm looking for? That, okay, perfect. Is that, it's an absolutely terrible system, but it's better than most places in the world. And I generally tend to believe that. I really do. So, all right, we have Uncivil Law. We've been meaning to hook up here. Let's see how we add to stream, right? I just click the button. How are you?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you?
Good. We finally get to connect. I saw your thing tonight, and let me see if I can get rid of this chat here. Exit full screen. Sorry. Yeah. All right.
I am excited to be on the much ballyhooed Crime Talk. This is a pleasure.
Well, thank you. Tell everyone out there a little bit about you.
Sure. So my channel is Uncivil Law. I have about 1,500 different videos on my channel. Cover a lot of Court of Appeal stuff, U.S. Supreme Court, and cover other things of interest. Been covering the Donnie Depp trial, Rittenhouse trial, and covering Amber Heard's media tour and the other press tours relating to that. And now I'm starting to get into the Daybell Vallow thing, which I think you might have some familiarity with that case. Perhaps?
We've been covering it from the beginning.
Yes.
I mean, we're now almost three. By the time this gets to trial, we will have been covering this for 3 years now.
I'm still working on getting the cork board assembled in my mind and trying to get all the relationships between these people assembled. the strings are not yet organized.
I think there's some, not to digress too much, but I think there's going to be some real interesting appellate issues in the Lori Vallow case. And the issue that I think is most interesting now is that the prosecution, their motion to continue sounded like a defense attorney's motion to continue. Well, Judge, they're going to need more time, and it's a complicated case. And sure, she's unequivocally said she doesn't want to waive her right to speedy trial. And there's an exception of the statute, which really has been given, a couple of days, a couple of weeks, not 4 months. And I just hope the defense attorney gets up and says, Your Honor, we move to dismiss, file a motion to dismiss, 1 day after speedy trial, and keep raising that issue. And I think they're going to say, man, was this really, really worth making that call? Just give them the damn trial.
Yeah, I did read the judge's decision on the motion for the speedy trial constitutional issues, and I found it wanting. The analysis felt a little thin.
That was my reading of it as well. It was basically, well, the prosecution really wants this, and it's going to be really inconvenient if we have to do this twice.
That's unfortunate.
I think we're going to, justice is expensive, right?
I don't know what to tell you. It's like, the prosecution's like, it would be really beneficial for the defense to have more time. Okay, if the defense was asking for more time, that'd be great, but they don't want more time. They very specifically don't want more time, whether that's a good decision or not. I think,
I think it's a
Okay.
great speedy trial motion. I hope that the defense continues to raise it, and not because I want the defense to necessarily win, but it's an interesting legal argument that needs to be done.
I kind of do enjoy watching the state get hoisted on its own petard. It's like we want everything all
Yeah.
at the same time, and there's something.
Yeah.
There's some shot in front in that. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. All right. Atlas Shrugged sent a comment here. It says, ask Uncivil to define man on the bus. I don't know what that means.
Just the reasonable man test. It's a test that we use commonly in law when we're talking about like a tortious action or trying to say what the reasonable person is, the reasonably ordinary, prudent person. And one of the ways that it's put in American law is the man on the bus. Different countries use it in different formulations. There's the man on the certain trolley or this certain thing, but it's basically just the ordinary common person. Who is the ordinary man, the man on the bus? And the idea is at least that, he's not so lowly that he can't afford the bus. He's not so high status that he uses something other than the bus. He has some basic skills to be able to read and exchange money and read a timetable and things like that. So it's just a person of ordinary, normal competence.
Yeah, which is your average juror.
Yes,
right? I mean, that's just what you normally get. Every now and then you get that weird jury that has like a trend, like, oh, today it seems like we have a bunch of teachers, and today it's a bunch of medical personnel. Like, how did they all get selected here? So yeah.
In my former home of Fairfax, where this case of Johnny Depp was being held, you saw that sometimes in federal courts where you'd wind up sometimes with multiple lawyers on panels just because of the nature of DC. So it'd be really weird sometimes.
Oh yeah, and as a general rule, lawyers make terrible jurors, in my humble opinion. But that's just me, because I had one on a jury once, and they're like, "Oh, they came out crying. We wanted to find your client not guilty, but that man kept telling us this was the law and we had to follow it." Who was a guy that was a licensed attorney but hadn't practiced law in 20 plus years or something to that effect. That's like, just read the instructions, listen to my brilliant closing argument, we would have won. So
I feel that absolutely. But watching this Amber Heard stuff and watching her lack of self-awareness and her continuing defamation is amazing.
Okay, so it's not just me.
No.
We did in our daily show. We talked about it earlier. I was like, she is a high rep learner. She just doesn't get it. She just committed another tortious act of defamation against Johnny Depp. She's doubling down. Why is she doing that?
Well, I mean, on one level, I guess she doesn't really have much more to lose at this point, so she's got that going for her. I mean, she could already be so broke. So
yeah, I mean, 8,345,000, right? I mean,
yeah,
with the offset.
But I don't like Johnny Depp's plan of let's not hold it against her. I like my plan better of let's get writs of attachment, go to her houses and take her stuff.
I would pay money for that. If I knew that was going to go down, I would send Frank, the hardest working man in show business, to my left. I would send him out there to videotape what was going on, because like I said, I thought there were some First Amendment issues. I didn't really think that they were going to get, as a public figure. And I just thought it was, from the legal aspect, I'm like, why is this case going forward? And I get how people didn't like her.
Yeah.
She's not likable at all. But now he's won. It's like, you got to go crush her like a bug.
I was commenting, I believe this last night. It's like, even in retrospect, you would never, if this case walked in the door, say, yeah, this is a winner. This is a total loser for Johnny Depp. The only reason the dominant reason that he won is Amber Heard gets on the stand and makes these absolutely outrageous factual claims. If she comes in with something softer, of some version of, he slapped me or he pushed me or something that's like even borderline reasonable, she can win. Yeah. Right? Roddenborn had the right idea in close. His idea was a winnable idea. But it seems like Amber Heard was driving a lane into this completely unwinnable territory. And it's like, you never predict this in advance. You'd be insane. So,
well,
all right.
We've all had that client that is their own worst enemy. They don't want to listen to you. They're going to do it their way. And at some point, they're going to have this accusation. You know what I'm talking?
Accusation, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to have the self-accusation that oh, maybe I should have listened to my attorney. Maybe they were actually telling me what to do. Maybe, concede just a little bit
It would have been
to give
helpful.
yourself credibility that you can, I did this. I'm, like Johnny Depp, he did it. Hey, I'm not a perfect guy. I've done some bad things. I've done a lot of alcohol, a lot of dope, things that I regret. I'm embarrassed by this stuff. But one thing I never did was I never hit her. That you have to embrace the negative, right?
Or any woman ever.
Yes, or any woman.
And we've heard nothing to the contrary to that. I mean, that's a pretty bold statement because you opened yourself up to a lot of impeachment. You just need one and not so much. Yeah.
Yeah. But, the jury, like you said, the man on the bus is looking at this and saying, my job is to decide who would I believe.
Yeah.
If I was having to buy a used car from one of these individuals and they're selling basically the same car, right? Which one am I going to believe just based upon my interaction with them? In this case, the witness stand. And they said, Johnny Depp, he's a little weird, a little quirky, but I like his candor. He's honest, or came across as honest.
He was fine in Pirates. Not a huge fan of his work in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So, I'm just trying to assess it. I don't really see any grounds of appeal for her. I suppose you're going to try to get into issues with evidentiary issues or questions that were denied, but no, there's just nothing I can see. I can see a couple grounds of appeal for him for counters, but I don't really see what she's going to do.
Well, I think the only legal one that like I said, the other stuff, evidentiary, 404, 401, 403, not relevant, prejudicial, outweighs his probative value, that kind of stuff. The jury's not going to, or the appellate courts, I don't see making that. The only thing I think they would have the argument on is, hey, judge, find as a matter of law, this was protected free speech and enters 0. But the judge has ruled. I don't know.
I don't see that working. Defamation, because it's just the questions are more factual in their nature than legal. Defamation's been not protected by the First Amendment since forever. So I do love her. I do love her sudden First Amendment defense. That was nice on the Today Show, where suddenly she's doing constitutional law analysis and explaining the First Amendment. I thought I was going to lose my mind when she mentioned the burning in the theater Schneck example, which is everyone's favorite. It's like, no.
Yeah, you can't do that. And didn't she say the First Amendment goes back to was it the Greeks?
The Greeks.
I was like,
okay.
I don't remember that one in law school, but okay. I don't think they had a whole lot of First Amendment back then.
No, I mean, at least the old school, they don't trace it back before time immemorial, which was set by law by the English in, I want to say, like the 1100s or something. There's an arbitrary year that they picked that is the beginning of legal history, so we don't go before that.
Yeah, and she went beyond that. Just shows you she's on the pointy end of the spear there when it comes to legal history, I guess, for sure. So what other cases are you following now? And
I was talking about the Murdoch cases in South Carolina, my former home. I grew up in South Carolina. And
South Carolina is my adopted home state.
There you go.
I live down there. I still have property down there. I want to go retire and live down there. And so the Murdoch case is rather interesting to me because it's right there in Beaufort County.
Yeah.
And when they show Paul getting off of the boat to go by, I know exactly where that is on the docks there in Beaufort.
My family lived there for a little while as well, so I'm familiar with the area. My family now lives up on the other end of the state near Greenville. My family lives in South Carolina, so I'm familiar with it. And this family, with basically since the position of the prosecutor in its modern form was created in 1920, was always held by this Murdoch family. And I think we are up to 75 charges and 15 indictments, and they're all at this point financial. And the speculation relating to various murders is ongoing. So it's now some sort of combination of Girardi and a John Grisham novel, and it's just getting more and more interesting with every passing moment.
Well, we did a show. I mean, the family has a long history of alleged corruption, going back to his grandfather that was indicted and charged back in the 50s for allowing bootleggers to get off easy.
Excellent.
And he was one of only of 33 defendants, his grandfather was the only one acquitted. And of course, there were allegations of jury tampering, and the judge that they sent down from Virginia to handle the case was absolutely appalled by Buster Murdoch, Alex Murdoch's son's namesake, by his lack of ethics in all regards. But he said, hey, if that's who you guys want as your prosecutor, you kind of you get what you deserve, so to speak. So I just think this is an interesting case.
It is very interesting. Other things I'm going to be covering, at some point, I still need to go back like 2 or 3 weeks, U.S. Supreme Court, when they ruled on that new stuff dealing with the habeas, effective death penalty case, dealing with bringing in evidence into the habeas petitions and not so much. I want to cover that Supreme Court decision from 2 or 3 weeks ago. There was one that just dropped recently with an 8-1 with Gorsuch in sole dissent. I like Justice Gorsuch, so I like to read his reasoning. And I'm still waiting for Dobbs, the abortion case, and NYSRPA, the gun case, to drop, which should be extremely interesting whenever they drop, I'm sure. And then we get to do the redlining thing with Dobbs, which we've never been able to do with the draft version versus the final version. You get to see the differences, which is kind of fun.
That's going to be very, very interesting. I mean, let's talk about a couple of things, because I find constitutional law and Supreme Court stuff absolutely fascinating.
Oh yeah, I can.
And what I like about it, particularly in the criminal realm, is that some public defender, some court-appointed lawyer, hired private counsel, making these arguments, and they usually just don't make it that one case. It's been something that someone's seen a pattern about for a while, and they keep making the objection, and they lose, and they go up on appeal, and maybe it gets some traction. Ultimately, makes it all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And so I think it's interesting in that regard that everyone's like, these big hoity-toity lawyers argue before the United States Supreme Court, and it's some little street lawyer down there making that argument that started it all. I always think the case that was interesting was Crawford, which is the right of confrontation. I think it was out of Washington v. Crawford v. Washington, I think, Washington State. And it was, you read the story, it was this appellate attorney kept raising this issue, and finally he kept saying, oh, it's the historical aspect, right across examination. And it breathed life back into the confrontation clause, which had been whittled away over the years. And so I think it's absolutely interesting, no doubt. And Dobbs, like you said, what is going to change? What changes? Will the vote change? Who knows? Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what incentives there are, if any. Because if Kavanaugh, for example, because who knows what would have happened if Kavanaugh was going to split off into some sort of moderated decision. If that was going to be what he's going to do, is he no longer going to do it now because he will send out a signal, basically, that he can be pressured into changing his opinion, even if he was going to do it in the first place? So there's the dynamics of the whole thing are endlessly fascinating. But I also agree with you in terms of remembering that there's just a guy at the end of these things. It's interesting. I met Dick Heller, for example, of Heller versus DC.
Really?
Guy. I met him, and I met McDonald once as well before he died from McDonald versus Chicago. And they, just to remember that there are a guy, or like a case of like BL versus Mahoney, dealing with basically it's Tinker 2.0, free speech in schools. BL is a cheerleader taking a Snapchat at her local, malt place or whatever, and it becomes a U.S. Supreme Court case. That kind of stuff is just endlessly interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, like Heller, it's a guy that says, I just want to be able to have a gun, and they say I can't. And so somebody says, well, let's take the case. Now, of course, sometimes they may shop it around to an organization that's friendly to their beliefs. Yeah. But it's literally one guy that says, let's go do this thing.
It's an interesting history with Heller in particular, because he was the only one of the group that had actually asked for the license and was actually denied. Like no one else did, because originally I think it was called Palmer, if memory serves correctly. They didn't really want the people were forwarding the case. They didn't really want Heller to be their lead plaintiff. And if you've met Heller, you understand why. He's a little bit funny, interesting caricature of himself. So it's not necessarily your ideal, but no one else actually bothered to ask. And so he was the only one left withstanding. So it's like, well, I guess this is our guy. And that's the way it happens sometimes.
No, there's no such thing as a perfect client, I guess. Right? What case was it? The Gorsuch, it was an 8-1 decision in Gorsuch.
It just came down. I think it's called Kent or something like that. Just dropped.
Was that the immigration one about the bonds or something?
It might have been.
Because, Gorsuch, he is a textualist through and through.
Yeah.
Which did the McGirt case, wrote the majority opinion for McGirt out of Oklahoma, which said, you're on Indian land, Oklahoma, Tulsa. And the reason I know that is because I'm on the CJA panel, and they ran out of attorneys in Tulsa. And they said, hey, would you take a case down in Tulsa for this guy that's, he was had a certain percentage of a Native American in him, qualified. He was on the registry of a tribe, and wound up in federal court versus state court, all because of Gorsuch's opinion in McGirt that says, we understand the way you guys have always done it. We understand what you think it means, but I'm telling you, had the Senate actually gone and ratified this treaty, then we'd have a valid thing, but they haven't done it in like 110 years.
Right.
So I'm not convinced that they're going to get around to doing it. And therefore you got to read what the document says. And some people are just, oh, this is the worst thing ever. And it just wasn't.
Yeah, very much. The one that where Gorsuch really stole my heart was the gays in the workplace case, the transgenders in the workplace cases, where they said that they were protected by discrimination on the basis of sex. And it was Gorsuch versus Kavanaugh. Because Kavanaugh is this kind of more traditional originalist kind of guy, and then you have Gorsuch, more this textualist guy. And I liked what Gorsuch wrote. I really thought it was very, very persuasive. So that's where I became a bit of a Gorsuch fanboy, because it's like, oh, this is really brilliant.
Well, he's a 10th Circuit guy. He grew up here in Denver. He was on the 10th Circuit before he got nominated to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's right.
He's, like I said, he just kind of gets it, and he seems like a pretty humble guy from what I can tell.
With credentials out the yin yang. I mean, he's
absolutely,
and he can write very well. And he I like the way he thinks. So I'd be interested to read his decision, because sometimes those sole dissents are interesting. Of course, the Great Dissent, Morrison versus Olson, which is now basically the dominant decision, written by then Justice Scalia. And you read these things, and sometimes they're great. Or my personal favorite, which wasn't really dissent, concurring opinion from Brandeis and Whitney versus California. My favorite opinion of all time, which is basically just First Amendment law, is basically what Brandeis wrote in that concurring. And so sometimes they can be really, really great.
Oh yeah. A lot of people out to dissent, it doesn't mean anything, but as my law professor used to say, the law becomes its own opposite, but maintains itself as a rational body of discourse, because you have to be able to explain how you're becoming your own opposite. It's not like you're king one day and just says, all of a sudden, this is why we're doing it. You have to be able to explain how you got there, so that you give legitimacy to the opinion, to the process. Otherwise, it's just an edict that comes down, from Mount High, and this is the way it's going to be.
Now, if I told you my utter hatred for Wickard v. Filburn and Chevron versus NRDC, because of that,
do tell.
No, I hate those decisions so much. I just think they're absolutely wrong. Wickard v. Filburn, classic case dealing with the backbone of Interstate Commerce Clause. There's a guy who wants to grow wheat on his own land for a variety of reasons. He's not allowed to, even though he's consuming all the wheat himself, which is the nice little trick to it. So he has a farm. He uses all of his wheat for his own purposes. He doesn't sell it. He uses all of it for his animals or otherwise. Goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, and he says, well, it's not interstate commerce because, not so much with interstate since it's on my land, and not so much with the commerce because I'm not selling it. And the U.S. Supreme Court says the non-interstate, non-commerce is nevertheless interstate commerce because it has effects on interstate commerce. And I lose my mind.
Because you bought a tractor that came through interstate commerce to do the wheat on your property that you're going to not sell to anybody. And therefore that's enough, which is how the government, the federal government, gets their greedy little paws.
It was even worse than that. It was even worse than that because you are not buying the wheat on the open market. That has the effect of interstate commerce. Your very decision not to buy things is itself in effect on interstate commerce. So once again, the non-interstate, non-commerce becomes interstate commerce, and I lose my mind. Chevron versus NRDC is a famous case dealing with discretion of administrative agencies, and basically says the administrative agencies get to interpret their own statutes to themselves. And why would we have a judicial branch that actually interprets the laws? Let's leave it to the executive agencies. And then there's a follow-on case of Brand X and Our, which basically says not only that, but they also get to change their mind. So even if they flip around, so you can wind up in these situations, and it's happened before, where an agency says something, like a court of appeals affirms it, the thing they change their mind, which sounds suspiciously like they're overruling the Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals says, well, that's okay too, because of these cases. So these are the cases that make me lose my mind.
Administrative agencies.
And they're both unanimous decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court, which also makes me lose my mind.
Well, because if you can't go back to the administrative agencies, then you're going to have to come to the court system. And they're already so overburdened, in district court and the Court of Appeal. Oh my gosh, it'll never end. Administrative agencies and the administrative law judges, it's just worse. That was the worst class. I remember taking it in law school, the Administrative Procedure Act, all that good stuff. Hated it. Like, if it's important enough to become a law, shouldn't the members of Congress actually have to vote on it? Say this is the law, instead of we're going to delegate all of our authority to a bunch of career bureaucrats that, because it's so complex, we just don't know what to do. We're going to give it all to you to create rules, create, judges to interpret the rules. And like you said, make it up on the fly as we go along.
I've also been asked to ask specifically about the back of your business cards, because apparently they will teach me all I need to know about talking to the police.
Well, I mean, if I had to give it in one quick clip, it would be,
all right, lawyer.
But I don't know if you can see this. Although it's not that big a deal. You probably can't. It's too small, but I'll read it to you.
Okay.
It says, this is on the back of my business card. Had it on here for 22 years. I refuse to consent to any search of my premises, the location of my arrest, my car, or effects. I wish to exercise my rights under the 5th and 6th Amendments to remain silent and to have my attorney present during any questioning or lineup. If you ignore my exercise of these rights and attempt to procure a waiver, I wish to confer with my attorney prior to any conversation with law enforcement agents on the subject of waiver.
Okay.
I think that about covers it.
That's pretty good.
I always like it, though, when it shows up in Discovery, where it's like posted to the wall or something, next to somebody's bed. And they the agents take a picture of it. You're like, all right.
Maybe I'll just make it big and make a floor mat out of it, put it outside my front door. Maybe that'll work.
Yeah. Or, like I said, just lawyer.
All right, lawyer.
Get that video, Frank? Handy. Hold on. This is the best video clip. You ever watch Billions, that show on
No
Showtimes? There's a great spot where
there's requests for the hat. Hold on.
Here it comes. There's a request for the hat. All right. Nice hat.
Thank you. It's custom made.
Nice. I like it.
Thank you. It was custom made by hand by Texas Hatters in Lockhart.
Really?
Yes.
Very nice. All right. Let's see if Frank, if you got it or no. Okay. Hold on. This is the best scene. This is the best, since most people are visual. This is the best way to do it.
You get up. Yeah, you.
All right, lawyer.
It's the best advice. He says, lawyer. But no one ever says that.
No, they don't. It's
never
amazing.
do.
They don't. It's like I say, the way I say it is, all you have to do is, it's really simple. Just say, I want a lawyer. I want to remain silent. Just that. Only that. Repeat like a mantra, and you'll be fine. But they never do.
They never do. I always like the clients to come in and they're like, so did you, your initial interview, so did you talk to the police? Yeah, I talked to them for a little bit, but I didn't say anything. And I'm like, really? How long did this conversation of not saying anything last? Probably no much more than 45 minutes, an hour. Okay, well, can't wait to see what that says, because I'm sure you just can't remember exactly what was said, but it was recorded, so don't worry about it, which usually involves a confession or putting yourself at the crime scene. So
There was
yeah.
that case, Redonda Vaught, Tennessee, a nurse convicted of manslaughter because she gave the wrong medication,
Oh yeah.
and she talked to the police, and they gave her the Miranda, and they then had an hour and 45-minute conversation, which I covered on my channel, and I think there's a decent chance not only does she not get convicted, I think there's a decent chance that charge never gets brought, but for that conversation.
Yeah. How
And
do they prove it?
yeah, it helped a lot with the proving the things.
I mean, sometimes, it's depressing, but sometimes it's like, whew, pressure's off me, right? When you say,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be here but for the fact that you spoke to the police and confessed. Like, what do you want me to do, man?
When the police tell you you have a right to remain silent, this is what we call a clue. You should probably take advantage of the clue.
So the attorneys and I here in the office, we were talking about it. And, like I think it was last time they tried to do, about 20 years ago, they tried to say that, Miranda was just judge made. It
Mhm.
needs to go away.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
And the Supreme Court, I think it was unanimous decision, basically said, yeah, we made it up. It really didn't exist until Miranda v. Arizona. But it's so ingrained in the American culture and movies and TV, etc. We're not going to be the guys that take that away. And basically what they said, paraphrasing here, was they give the warning and everybody talks anyway. So what does it really matter?
Yeah.
No one ever follows it. It's like,
Nope.
cops are saying you're in custody, you're handcuffed. We brought you in this nice little interview room. We're going to tell you, and we're going to record it. But before I do that, I'm going to say, here's a little sheet. I'm going to read it to you in the language of your choice. I'm agreeing to give up. I understand that anything I say can and will be used against me. I don't have to talk. I can stop this interview at any time. If I don't have a lawyer, one will be appointed for me, et cetera, et cetera. Standard Miranda advisement in greater detail in lots of places. And they're like, oh yeah, sure. I'll talk to you. And you're just like, how long have I known you? How many times have I said don't do it? It isn't until they're through the system about 4 or 5 times that they finally start to get smart. I mean, from the defense perspective, I guess. So
yeah.
Somebody said we have to play the official theme song for Crime Talk. Do you guys have a theme song for Uncivil Law?
Not yet, but we could get one. That'd be fun.
Okay, here's ours.
Send lawyers, guns, and money.
That's our theme song.
Excellent. I'm digging it.
All right. Can you believe, man, it goes by so fast.
No, I'm having a great time. This is fun.
Yeah. So are you still going on Rakita Law quite a bit?
Yeah, from time to time, as I have something interesting to say, or there's interesting things going on there. Sure, why not? He's a fun guy.
Yeah, I know he's a fun guy. I've just been so.
I decided to outgrift him yesterday night by trying to outdrink him. That was fun.
Who won?
I'm not sure. We both did pretty well in Super Chat, so I think we both won.
Well, nice. All right. Yeah, I always enjoy going on there, but it's always in the middle of the day, and unfortunately, I got this day job, and I'm trying to quit, but I just need a few more subscribers and super chats, I guess. But
July 2nd is my last day.
Really?
Yeah.
You're officially saying I'm done, huh?
I'm done.
How many years you been practicing?
15.
Oh, you're just a pup.
Well, I've been doing this patent law thing for 15 years, and I don't really want to do it anymore. I want to do something else. It's interesting and all, but I'd like to switch subjects. So I'm going to do full-time YouTube for 6 months and reevaluate. Maybe I'll do some appellate courts or appellate cases or something. It'll be fun.
Well, good for you. I wish you all the luck in that. That's always the scary thought is, do I jump in with both feet? What if there's no water in the pool? I've got a lot of mouths to feed here at the office, 5 attorneys plus staff. And it's like, it'd be great if it was all just flowing, but a lot of the stuff still depends on people come to hire me. And I'm not trying to be arrogant about that. It's just kind of the way it is.
You seem to do okay for yourself. I've seen CrimeTalk 1.
Yeah, but it'd be nice to have CrimeTalk 2.0 or something. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. Every kid's got a dream.
Yeah.
Every kid's got a dream. Well, good. That's exciting stuff. So, you have any particular format you're going to do, or just
continue kind of doing what I'm doing now, covering trials as they happen. I'm going to do the Daybell trial, gavel to gavel, in January or whenever that winds up being. And otherwise, just covering interesting cases in the news. There's always something happening. The U.S. Supreme Court dropping news, or some court of appeals, or just whatever crosses my eye. One of the nice things about my channel is I get to have a much wider breadth. It's like none of the videos on my channel actually deal with my area of expertise, which is kind of interesting in some ways, because I get to learn about new things, which is endlessly fun.
Yeah. Well, that's what I told. I mean, that's the thing I love about the law, is that literally you learn something new every day. I mean, literally every time you come to work, it's like, I didn't know that. I didn't, like, I read that statute again. I didn't. That's what it means, huh? Oh, really? I mean, there's always something, and the good and the bad is that it's never the same day twice. You're putting out fires. Your relaxing day in the office can mean an emergency pops up, and next thing you know, your whole day is shot. And then it's like, okay, when am I going to get that done? I guess it's called evenings and weekends.
Yeah. So I'm hoping I'll hit 100,000 subs before that July 2nd, because that'll make me feel like even better in my life. But yeah, I already gave notice, so we'll see.
All right. Well, let's, any of our followers, if you haven't done so already, go over to Uncivil Law, give him a subscribe so that he can get to that 100,000. You get the little plaque.
I'm looking forward to that.
That's kind of cool. But then they don't give you another one till you get like to 1 million. And, unless we have something that goes viral, it seems like it's just like, man, it's so slow. I just don't get it. So
what is coming up in your world, Scott? What's new and exciting, since we've been talking about me for a little while now?
We have lots of stuff coming up. Obviously, we've been watching the Daybell trial. We flew over there. Guess it was last fall, I guess. Right. It was kind of during COVID, so we couldn't get a whole lot going on. And but it was interesting to see the jurisdiction that took place. We need to get over to Boise and kind of get a feel for what the jury's thinking out there. I think it will be interesting. That case has been going on so long. There was an attorney at the beginning by a guy named Mark Means. Yeah. It was just like he was.
I enjoyed your coverage of Mark Means. It was you had opinions.
It was, it was God's gift to YouTube, was Mark Means. I mean, you have a guy who'd never done a felony criminal case handling a death penalty case. And the judge was more than eager to get rid of him at some point. They just needed the right out. And the judge went along with it. But it's been a little less exciting without him there. I'm not going to lie. Because Lori Vallow's attorneys don't just shoot off and do anything. I really thought she was going to maybe try to cop a plea or something like that when she got back from being restored to competency. But who knows? You never know.
Are you going to actually go out there in person when the trial's being held?
That's the plan. That's
all right. Plan. Maybe I'll try to swing that too. That could be fun. Meet up in Idaho.
Yeah, I don't know if the court will.
You can fly me out.
Put it on YouTube. Yeah, I don't know if the court will put it on their YouTube channel.
I hope so,
because they are getting real weird lately. It used to be everything was just put it up on YouTube, and now everything's motions to seal. Going to have hearings that aren't accessible to everybody else. It's just going to be, privacy interest. It's a freaking homicide case. It needs to be open to the public, and not everything is a great privacy interest. Yes, I don't need somebody's social security number, but it's going to come out at trial and an open. So let it be known.
They better put this thing up on some sort of broadcast, because if they don't, I might actually have to go out there and sit in line for however many weeks this thing is going to be, and that'll be irritating.
Yeah, I think they're talking 4 to 6 weeks for trial.
Oh, Lord.
Which it would be, Idaho in the middle
January.
Of
winter. Not ideal.
Could be interesting. The plan is to be out there. I hope it's videotaped or streamed as well. I think that we, should do that. We've got a couple other things going on, but I'm not quite ready to spill the beans on those just yet, but hopefully the next week or so, I think I'll be ready to go. We'll see.
Cool. Sounds like fun.
Trying to,
We should definitely do some collabs on Daybell as well going forward. It'd be fun to, because you're well more familiar than me, and so you can help get me up to speed if nothing else. So I can learn from the master.
Yeah, hardly. But yeah, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's an interesting case, and like lots of things. I mean, I always tell my attorneys that most cases don't turn on the law. It's who can turn out to find the better facts. And when they talk about the Daybell property, that it was so this big farm, it's actually small, which makes you think it's more likely that someone couldn't know that JJ and Ty Lee were having their remains disposed of on this property. They make it sound like it was this vast property, and it's on this corner of kind of an intersection on this country road, but there's homes like, to the
I gotta teach these people how to dispose of the bodies better, and we can have some discussions. You got to work harder.
Yeah, it made no sense to me, right? I mean, why would you do that? Where supposedly they disappear out in the woods, and if anyone's ever been to Idaho, there's a lot of woods.
There's some woods. There are some woods.
There's lots of places to bury.
Or as I was confusing my channel, did you consider going to the murder zone in Yellowstone, Idaho? That'd be good.
Yeah, I'm not sure that really exists. I got to find that. The lovely Miss Krista and I are trying to go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, for the 4th of July.
Excellent.
And but run into dog care issues, Miss Winnie the Bulldog issues. And so then I talked to the people today because I want to fly up there. And, I'm not trying to be pretentious at all, but the guy goes, yeah, it's first come, first serve now. We used to take reservations, but we don't. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, I'm a little plane compared to some, G5 that could be rolling. He goes, when we're full, we're full. He goes, you're a little single engine. We have 6 tie downs. And if you don't get here before those 6 tie downs, we don't have any room for you. I'm like, well, where do I go from there? Well, there's an airport about a mile. It's an hour drive back this way. Well, I don't want to do that. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but maybe go see, since we're right there by Yellowstone, Jackson, that's, area that has been highlighted on Yellowstone.
We'll go together, Scott.
Yeah, it's I mean, I want to go, that's one of the areas like, let's go check it out. Because when Frank and I flew to Idaho, I hadn't flown that way in a while, in a couple of years. And I was just like, there are a lot more trees even than flying, because I fly over our mountains quite a bit. And it's big valleys and, but in Idaho, it was rocky mountains with lots and lots of big old trees. And I kept thinking, either somebody's a dumb criminal, didn't know what they were doing, or maybe they were just crazy. Like some people are going to probably try to say they were, and they couldn't form the requisite intent, because no one that's stupid would bury bodies at your house, for God's sakes. I mean, it just makes no sense.
Does seem non-optimal. Again, with the massive amounts of woods in Idaho.
Yeah, and we're not talking you had to drive far. I mean, you could drive an hour in each direction and you'd be in the woods. And not condoning burying bodies and abuses of corpse.
But if you were going to,
but if I was, I don't think I would bury it on my own property. It'd be like that guy in Florida that we talked about a couple of weeks ago that killed his girlfriend, was digging the hole. The neighbors noticed something weird, like he was doing that, but then he died of a heart attack while he was burying the body. So yes, he died an innocent man, I guess, but once again, just stupid. Why would you bury it on your property unless you had thousands of acres?
I'm also going to be doing a dramatic rereading of the love notes between the Daybells, because those text messages look epic. So if you'd like to join me for a part, with
Sure,
your best
sure.
saucy romance novel voice. Let me know.
I'll do Chad. I'll do
Okay.
Chad. How's that?
There you go. I like playing the girls in these ones for some reason. I always seem to get stuck with the girl parts, but I always have fun.
Well, and this is such a sad case, obviously, because you've got 2 children are dead. You have a wife, Tammy Daybell, that's deceased now. Obviously, she had her own children, but it's sad that these children are gone. But you see this guy who's total middle-aged, has a midlife crisis, somehow meets this woman, pretty, probably above average on the attractive scale for him, and just rocks his world. Next thing you know, he's got dead kids in the lawn, a wife that's dead, her ex-husband dead in Arizona, crazy brother Alex Cox
with the assassination attempts. Yeah,
with the assassination attempts on the wife, and then he winds up dead, and just natural causes. Like, so I always wondered, like, this guy has never, I don't think one day ever has he asked for a bond in this case. And my first thought was, he knows that she is a black widow and he is safer in custody than getting out and having her or these other people, I mean, it's just a tragedy through and through. You got this, he's like a prepper guy and, having his little podcast and giving some speeches about, the end of the world coming. Next thing you know, he
didn't know how right he was, man. Damn.
Well, yeah. I mean, seriously, we have a sponsor. It's for like food prepper thing. And I'm literally thinking, in all my days, I can never recall going to the store and seeing shortages of food. I can never recall. I remember the gas crisis back in the early days. I remember Jimmy Carter's term and how miserable it just seemed during that time period. And this is like, on steroids kind of thing. It's just, we got nuclear war being threatened in Asia. We've got it in Russia and Ukraine. And you're just thinking, what the hell is going on? The world has lost their mind.
Yeah.
So
these
I don't know.
Some of these women, man, with that and Amber Heard, it's like, it's a cautionary tale of some kind. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah.
The world is losing their mind. That's for sure. Crime is up everywhere. I don't know. All right. Well, we got to go do our Patreon show. So
okay.
I want to thank you for joining us this evening. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while.
This is a blast.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on.
I think I'm going to read the indictments for the Daybell Vallow case on stream in a little bit myself. So that'll be fun.
It's a good read. I've read them a couple times myself. That's for sure.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on very, very much. I do appreciate the invitation. It was very kind of you. Of course. I'm glad we're able to do this.
Good luck on your new adventure as of July 2nd. Good for you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye for now.
Bye. All right. Well, that was an unexpected twist, but hey, that's the way things happen on live streaming TV here. Uncivil Law, we had chatted with him a couple of times, and we appeared on Rakita Law's program a couple of times. He was there as well. Patent lawyer guy, and so usually patent lawyers are pretty smart guys. It's pretty interesting perspective. Patent guys, appellate guys, they can remember all those appellate cases off the top of their head. It's going to be interesting. A lot of Supreme Court cases coming down here in the next 2 weeks. We'll see if everybody takes it with, saying it's the court, we got to do it, or change the law, or if, cities are going to burn. Hopefully that is not the case. So yeah, that'll be interesting as well. All right. So we've been going, I can't believe it, so fast, over an hour and a half. I will take a 5-minute break, and then we are going to do our Patreon show. So if you'd like to continue the conversation, please do so. And you can call in at the Patreon number and we can have a conversation about anything that you all would like to talk about. So thank you all very much. Thanks for watching, and we'll see our Patreon members shortly.